now the Lagoon 620, which is the largest production boat that Lagoon build. They also now build Lagoon Custom. So if you'd like bigger than the Lagoon 620, we now have Lagoon Custom. So the boats are getting bigger and bigger as the demand increases. Next to us we have the brand new Azimuth 38. This was released at the Genoa Boat Show in October last year. And this one here, it's actually the second Azimuth 38 now in Singapore. The first one just arrived the other month. This is the baby of the Azimuth range. It's 38 foot long. And why it is so important to us in Singapore, because this 38 is the perfect size to fit into Sentosa Cove, which you know out at 115. There's a fantastic market there at Sentosa. There's a lot of wealth concentrated in that area. There's a lot of waterfront houses with empty docks, and there's a limitation in size into what you can actually get through that lock. The 38 fits perfectly, so and it's quite a reasonable price for when it comes to Azimuth, that's for sure. And after this, you're welcome to have a look, and you'll be quite amazed that for a 38-foot boat, it feels like a much bigger boat. Next to that, we have the Azimuth 58, which is a mid-range Azimuth, which is a 2010 model. It was delivered in November last year. It was delivered. Following on from that, we have the Beneteau Oceanus 54, which is the second largest Oceanus that Beneteau build. They're all privately owned, I should say, too. A lovely couple have bought that, retired doctors who plan to sail off into the sunset, and that's exactly what this boat's designed for. It's a great ocean-going boat, roomy, spacious, really very nice boat. So please have a look at these afterwards. Round the corner we have our 3 Sea Ray stock boats, which we actually own, which we're looking to sell during the show. The Azimuth little speedboat, the Sea Ray 185. The Sundeck 280, which is an open sports boat, and then the larger Sea Ray 370, which is a real sports boat with a sleek 6. Fantastic for Singapore waters. Again, those 3 boats fit into the cove, of course, because they're all under the 40-foot range, 45 foot. Down the other end we have the Lagoon 450. That Lagoon 450 is the first Lagoon 450 into Singapore. It's a brand new model. It was launched last year in France. I can't remember what month, but mid last year in France. It's the first one to come into Singapore. This boat's been put into charter. It's a perfect size for charter in Asia. It's registered for charter, it can hold 27 people. So for amount of people for the size boat, it makes a fantastic charter boat because of some boats are registered only allowed to carry, say, 20, so your return on investment is slightly less if you can only carry 20 people. If you can have a party for 27 people, you obviously appeal to a larger market and it's more popular. It's a brand new design lagoon. You'll actually see a slight difference between that one and this one. This is a slightly older, this is early 2010. That's a late 2010, 2011 model. You'll see a slight difference in the inside, just how they've got new designers and things, a lot more woodwork. But please have a look at that. It's a stunning boat, and that's going to get a lot of attention at the show. That's why we've got it in such a prime position. There's a really big market for catamarans we're finding in Asia now. Like this, you can see it's like a floating apartment. There's so much space, enormous amount of light, easy internal, exterior flow. It's like having a floating apartment with a balcony. Quite different to the Oceanus 54, which is a traditional monohull, where you've got your cockpit and you go down below into the cabin. You know, it's very much a sailboat. This is more like a floating apartment.
I have a question to ask, if you mind if I interrupt. How does Simpson Marine aim to achieve the market share in Singapore and Asia? What is your plan for the market share like?
Right now, we have we've always had a fairly consistently high market share. There is a lot more competition coming into the market right now. We're seeing a lot of European brands and American brands are looking towards Asia as the saviour to save their bacon, because Europe and US is still very, very slow. So we see them coming in. We have a history in Asia. We've been in Asia for 27 years. We have locations spread throughout Asia and service centres throughout Asia. So no matter where someone buys a boat, no matter pretty much wherever they cruise, whether they're in Thailand or the Philippines or in Hong Kong, Singapore, now in Jakarta, in Indonesia, we have service. And this is something that nearly none of the other companies in Asia actually
So what sort of percentage are you talking about in terms of market share in Singapore alone?
I don't have that number.
No, okay.
I definitely know we sell more boats.
Do you think and are you confident that Simpson Marine will ever achieve and is seeing the high demand of boat and yacht purchases in the future?
Will we see it continue?
Yes.
Absolutely. I think it'll increase.
Do you think that the capacity between 1 degree 15 as well as Keppel Marine is able to accommodate that demand, or do you see that Singaporeans are also going abroad in search of better, or perhaps probably to seek some kind of like a consistent service as they could find elsewhere in Southeast Asia?
Well, what we find is people who live in Singapore generally like to keep their boats in Singapore. Marina space, the big difference between Singapore and say Hong Kong, which is run out of berth space, is that Singapore, the government and the industry work very well together. The government in Singapore is actually very supportive of the marine industry and is looking at ways to support the industry to expand. So new marinas, you may have heard they're building a new marina within the barrage for New Marina Bay. They're actually planning a marina inside there with a lock, so you can take your boat inside the Marina Bay into the barrage, I think they call it, and have your boat in there. So there's a lot of support by the government to help this industry grow. So I think that will, because we're so far ahead of other countries, Singapore will, I think, maintain its standing as a fairly good location to keep boats, to buy boats. We have very low tax. Thailand is another fantastic location to buy and keep boats. You can, even though there's high tax, there are obviously ways you can avoid that in Thailand. But again, we have offices and two locations in Thailand as well to take advantage of that. Indonesia, we are in the process now of opening an office in Jakarta, which should be open within the next 3 months to take advantage of the growing Indonesian wealth that's over there. We have a lot of Indonesian clients who buy boats and keep their boats in Singapore, but they would quite happily keep them in Indonesia as well.
Is your organization, the Simpson Marines, plans for the sandwich economy here in Singapore, such as boat financing and services, because there will be a good number of uprising, growing middle class here in Singapore who have keen interest, but they want to able to find ways to afford the lifestyle. So is your organization planning to work on it, or do you have a coexisting plans?
Yeah, this is a real problem in Singapore. It's actually in Hong Kong as well, I assume in Thailand, in these regions. Marine finance is quite difficult to get. If we could get this marine finance sorted out, boating would double very, very quickly here in Singapore and in Asia in general. It's interesting here, it's very easy for an 18-year-old to go and get a big loan and buy a brand new car, you know, and banks are bending over backwards to lend him $150,000 to buy a fancy car. They won't do the same for boats. It's, again, we work a lot with finance companies. We have very good connections with Oryx Capital, with Singapore Finance, with DBS, with all sorts of finance companies, helping them through their, I guess, their resistance to marine finance, but it's taking time. Yeah, they say they will do it, but we're still working on that. So that will make a big difference. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Thank you.